Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Friday and it's time for another video. And today I'm going to be doing a follow-up to a video that I did last week. I did a video last week. It was the 10 best utility items for magicians, and it blew up. A lot of people really liked the list. A lot of people were really thankful for the list, said, hey, I discussed a bunch of stuff that people hadn't thought of. There were other people that said, hey, I wouldn't necessarily have put some of the stuff in the list that you did. This is what I would have put in, and that's what I love about lists like this. Everybody has their own opinion. Now, off the back of that, I've had several people ask me to do a follow-up video of the 10 best utility items for mentalists and mental magicians that do mental magic. 10 best utility items for magicians, for mentalists, and that's what I'm going to do in this video. Now, I'm not a mentalist, but I have performed and created a lot of mental magic, and I actually do a lot of mentalism themed tricks in my stage show, and I do quite a few in my close-up show as well. I'm well versed. I've read the 13 Steps to Secrets many times. I studied the works of lots of different mentalists. So although I'm not known as a hardcore mentalist, and I wouldn't want to be, I do know a lot about mentalism. And so I sat down and I went back and forth, and I have put together what I think is the ultimate list of utility items. So if you're into mentalism, if you want to perform mentalism, this is the list that you want to listen to. These are the utility items you need as a mentalist. You might have some of them, you might not. You might disagree with some of them. There's a couple that might be considered a little controversial in nature, maybe, but we're going to go for it. So let's break it down. These are the best items that you can have as a mentalist. Okay, I'm actually going to do 12. I can't get it down to 10, so I'm going to do the 12 best utility items for mentalists. And coming in 12th position are business cards. I think that every mentalist needs to carry around business cards with them, or some sort of card that they can write on. I'm not talking about little billets now. I'm talking about cards. Maybe it's index cards, but to be honest, I use business cards. There are so many different things that you can do with business cards, whether it be sneak thief or peeks or center tears. I think, to be honest, a business card and a pen is something that every magician should have with them. I mean, look at Bob Cassidy's name place routine as a perfect example. You can do that with business cards very easily. My favorite routine, if you're interested with business cards, is Magician's Graphology by Andy Nyman. Now, Magician's Graphology, in my opinion, is one of the greatest tricks of all time, and it's one that I do an awful lot, and I carry business cards around with me set up to be able to do that at a moment's notice. The fact that I can just have 3 or 4 business cards in my pocket, and I can have 3 or 4 pens, and I can go into a routine that will work to the biggest audience with nothing else, is perfect. And whether you do peaks or, I mean, look at all the different peaks that you can do with business cards. Richard Osterlin's peak where you fold it up into quarters and you get the peak like that, and center tears, and the list goes on and on. So many different ways of actually getting peaks. So I think that in 12th position, the first utility item you need as a mentalist is business cards. I've even thought mentalists can use out to lunch principle. Yeah, there's a lot of it. I remember on the Boris Pocus DVD, Jay Sankey had a fantastic routine where he makes somebody forget a shape, and that was all based on out to lunch. It's fantastic. Business cards, so much you can do with business cards. 12th position, utility item for mentalists, business cards. Okay, so in 11th position, I'm going to put loops. Now, this is one of the controversial ones, I've got to be honest with you, because a lot of people watching this are probably going to think, loops? Isn't that the sort of thing that you use as a magician? Magicians use that to do rising cards and floating things and so on and so forth. But in all honesty, some of the best uses that I've ever seen a set of loops for is mentalist applications. Excuse me. So, for example, in the original booklet that came with the original loops, you have, oh my gosh, this routine with a pair of glasses where you pour a pair of glasses and you just close the glasses just by using loops. And there was another one where you spin the sunglasses around on the table, a little bit like like you've got psychic powers. Now, it obviously depends on the type of mentalist that you are, but if you're the type of mentalist that does a lot of visual mentalism, so it's not just cerebral, it's not just reading minds, but it's also about moving things with the objects and bending things and so on and so forth, then having a set of loops is really great to be able to do that stuff. One of my favorite loop routines of all time is Justin Miller's ring slide, where you're actually making the ring. You put the ring on a pen or on a Sharpie marker that they're holding onto, and you make the ring come off the pen into the waiting spectator's hands. I think the best use of loops isn't when you're floating things around crazily, it's when you're moving things with the power of your mind, apparently. The other thing you can use loops for, obviously, is PK touches. You know, there's lots of different ways to do PK touch routines, Bamchek's PK touch routine, but one valid way of doing it, especially in a close-up condition, is by using loops and, you know, saying, hey, close your eyes, do me a favor, did you feel that? You know, that sort of thing. So there's lots of different ways that you can actually use loops as a mentalist, but I'd say definitely it deserves to be a utility item in every mentalist's arsenal. So 11th position, we've got loops. Okay, so in 10th position, we have Lux by Lloyd Barnes. This is the other controversial one, because again, a lot of magicians look at Lux as being a tool that magicians use, because you can make X's jump from one place to the other, and so on and so forth. And I know Lux was one of those products that came out in 2022 that most people loved, but some people were quite vocal about not liking. I love Lux, I use it all of the time, but as a mentalist, mentalism applications of Lux are brilliant. I've seen people do so many different things. Well, just the one of the main routines that came with the project was having that kind of invisible deck type thing, where you've got the X and, you know, they name any card in the deck, and then you show that all the other cards have nothing on them, and the only card with a big X written in UV pen is the card that they named. There's book tests on the project that also use Lux. There's a lot of different ways you can actually go with Lux, and I know there's projects that come out or are coming out towards the end of 2023 that work with UV, and they work on their own with UV, but if you add Lux to the equation, it becomes even better. So I think that your smart modern day mentalist, and I think that the thing with mentalism, it has to move with the times. And what I mean by that is, you know, the classic mentalism principles are great, and that's fantastic. But these days, you know, why not use black lights? Why not use UV lights? After all, at the end of the day, it's 2023, and the fact is, if you use Lux correctly, it's not just a tool for magicians, it's also a tool for mentalists. Okay, so in 9th position, I'm going to go for a boom writer or a thumb writer or some sort of thumb or boom writer, which is, if you don't know, where you've got a piece of, you've basically got something on your thumb that you can use to write, thumb write very, very easily. You know, there's so many different versions of this out there. Nail writers were popular many, many years ago. I don't use nail writers. My nails are very short. I've never really got on with nail writers. But boom writers, you know, that sort of thing, I think that they are great. The one that I've got is a Vernet one, and it's like a key ring that's on your key fob. And you can literally, you put your hand into your pocket and you can slide it open, and you can put your thumb in there and get it onto your thumb, and then deposit it back into place whenever you need it. I mean, if you just carry a few business cards around with you and some sort of invisible writing device, like I say, like a boom writer or a nail writer, you can perform absolute miracles. You really can. I mean, you can literally just have people name numbers, and the numbers that they name has been predicted on the business card. There's so many different things that you can do with it, so many different options. And there's a new trick that's come out through Penguin Magic recently, Elvo Stockman's middle seat. And I've just filled a review for it. And one of the points that I made in the review is you could achieve the same thing without carrying a gimmick deck of cards around with you. Just with literally a business card and a thumb writer or a boom writer, you could perform exactly the same thing, but without needing to go through all of the faff. And I think that this prop is very underutilized. I think a lot of people don't use it as much these days. And I think that's a real shame, because it has so many applications. One of my favorite routines, and obviously this isn't a mentalism routine, but one of my favorite routines of all time, something I do in my show quite a lot, is the Mind Reading Goose by Steve Spill. I spent a lot of money years ago on getting myself a mind-reading goose. I love the mind-reading goose routine, but if you actually break the mind-reading goose routine down and you take out the P-gag and all of this stuff, in essence, the goose is reading people's minds, and the method is by using a thumb writer. That's the method, right? There's an awful lot more to it that you understand when you buy the prop and so on and so forth, but the basic concept of the goose reading people's minds is using the thumb writer. It's been used successfully by mentalists throughout the years for many, 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 many years, and it continues to be a fantastic utility device that you can literally just have in your pocket. It takes up no space, and you can perform absolute miracles with it. Look at Pre-Mental Diction by Chris Dugdale. Pre-Mental Diction by Chris Dugdale is a fantastic prop. It's a wallet that you can use to heighten your thumb writer routines. I did a review on it a couple of years ago. It's really, really good. And on my first interview with Chris Dugdale, I actually talked to him about that as well. So have a look at that, Pre-Mental Diction. That's not on the list, the thumb writer is, but the point is there's so much you can do by just having this one simple prop in your pocket. So next up, we have an add a number pad. Again, I think that the add a number pad has been it's fallen away from popularity recently. But I think that the add a number pad you can perform absolute miracles with an add a number pad. I know Scott Alexander brought an add a number pad out recently that was a very different design that was great. But I mean, an add a number pad is something that will work if you're doing sort of banquet style magic, restaurants, not really so much for walk around, depending on the walk around situation you might be able to, but not really for walk around. But it's great for stage. You know, for many, many years, I actually used an add a number pad to open my stage show. I actually opened my cabaret show with it because it's an absolute miracle. You get multiple people to write down numbers, then you get somebody else to add them all up, and you've predicted the number, or you've predicted, I mean, obviously you can get really clever with it, but the point is, if you were a real mentalist and you could actually predict the numbers that somebody were going to name, well, that's an incredible trick, right? That's a really awesome trick. And that's what an add number pad allows you to do. So if you haven't looked into it already, if you're a mentalist or you like doing mentalism or mind reading, then absolutely 100% you should go and have a look and check out an add a number pad. And have a look at Scott Alexander's add a number pad. Go and look at his website. Just Google Scott, I think it's under shop, and you'll see his stuff in there. There's a load of different stuff that Scott's put together, but the add a number pad is on there as one of the items that you can buy. Bottom line, add a number pad is great. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about the Anverdi die. The Anverdi die, just the individual die, not the triple set, which I think is good, but I'm talking mainly about the Anverdi die. Now, obviously, there's various different versions of this out there. You've got Pro Mystic, who have their real die and their Pro Mystic die. Basically, it's the concept of having a die, or dice if you want to be grammatically incorrect, but it's the idea of having a die that you can roll, or the spectator can roll, and instantly, without looking, you know what the number is that's pointing upwards. Now, this allows you to do so many different routines and possible combinations. I remember when I saw Richard Jones for the first time perform on stage after Britain's Got Talent, I was actually comparing him on. I was performing at a show and I was to compare, and the headlining act was Richard Jones. And I'd never seen Richard perform outside of BGT before, and the first 7 minutes of his act was using a real die, in a very unique, very, very original way, but it was using real die, or using that sort of dice, you know, that dice that allows you to get access to the information. And then Luch, you know, Luch is a mind reader that I very much respect. And when I saw Luch performing recently at a walk around gig just before Christmas, he was opening his set with one of these dice, and he was using it to get predictions and test to see whether he can influence people. And I think that's the thing. Matt, if you've been following the Matchumentary, Matt has been gravitating massively towards mentalism, and he's got a real flair for mentalism, and he uses one of these mental dice to start his set when he's doing close-up magic. I love this prop, I really do. One of the things that it's driven home to me is there's so many different places you can use it. It's rare for something that's not visual to work as well close up and walk around as it does in banquet, as it does on stage, but that's what you have here. And The project that came with it, and I'm talking about the Anne Verdi version that came out through Murphy's now, the project that came with it was so in-depth. There's so many different ideas and routines and concepts that you can actually do with this. And whether you're using it as just a warm-up piece to kind of warm the audience up in a walk-around situation, or whether you're performing it on stage like Richard Jones does to 400, 500, 600, 1,000 people, it's a very powerful device. It looks like something that you carry around with you. It packs small, it plays big, and it's got lots of options. So there you go, the Anne Verdi dice. Now, for people that ask, the mental dice, I really like the mental dice as well, and they didn't make the list, unfortunately, but I think they're great. I think it's a great utility item, but I think that if I was going to pick just one of those, I would go for the real dice or the Pro Mystic dice, whichever you prefer to get. Okay, so next up we have billets. I think that every single mentalist needs to have some billets that they carry around with them. What billets? Well, basically, they're just little pieces of paper that allow you to do a million different things. And I have recently seen the project that the 1914 put out as a download, all on routines with billets, and I have to say it was exceptional, like really, really good. I was very impressed with them and the overall project. And then off the back of that, I assume it's off the back of that, they've brought out actual billets that you can buy, boxes of billets. And I think that as a mentalist, I think for mentalists, billets are the equivalent of like a pack of cards for magicians, because it allows you to write things down and without going too much into detail with what you can do with billets, you literally, your options are limitless, especially when you get the 1914 download and you realize just how much stuff you can do with it. Go check out the work from D. Christopher. Go check out the work from Alexander Marsh or Alex McAleer. Go check out the work from Lewis at the 1914. Go check out the work of Jack at the 1914. All these, Louis Lavelle, Jack, all of these people, they've put some amazing work in with billets. And really, I think that if you're a mentalist and you're preparing to go out and do mentalism, whether you're performing on a big stage or you're performing close-up, I think you need to have some billets and a piece of paper with you. And I think that billets have a use that business cards don't, and vice versa. And if you look into mentalism and you understand it properly, you'll realize why. But for now, trust me, go get the 1914 billets, go purchase their download all about routines with billets, and you can thank me later. Okay, so next up you have a Sven Pad, or a couple of Sven Pads. Now, the beautiful thing about the Sven Pads, Brett Barry's Sven Pads especially, is that there are so many different versions and variations of them now. Obviously, I've talked on this channel over and over again about how Celebrity Prestige is such an amazing trick. It is an amazing trick. Celebrity Prestige is brilliant. But off the back of Celebrity Prestige, you've got a massive range of pads, ranging from big pads that you can use on stage, small little notepad type things that will just fit into your top pocket. So no matter what type of mentalist you are, no matter what type of arena you're performing in, no matter what environment you're performing in, no matter how much pocket space you have, carrying a Sven Pad round is a really good idea, because it allows you to create your own routines and in a very fair, organic way force whatever it is that you want to force. And different people will use it in different ways. Like if you've seen Ryland's performance of the Sweep Prediction, he actually uses a Sven Pad to get into that routine as kind of a little bonus thing before he goes into the main routine. That's great. That's wonderful. That works like a charm. Brilliant. I know that other people use it for a lot of different reasons. It doesn't matter why you use it. As a mentalist, having the ability to force something in a very clear, concise way without it looking convoluted, or without it looking procedural, and without it looking like a force, I think that's really important. And the Sven Pad gives you that opportunity. And as I say, you can scale the pad up and give people a massive pad on stage, or you can have a smaller pad in close-up. And then, as I say, if you combine that with all of Brett Barry's other stuff that you can do with Sven Pads and Celebrity Prestige and this and that and the other, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer for magicians as well. But if you're a mentalist and you don't own at least 3 or 4 Sven Pads that you can just grab when you get an idea for a trick, haven't quite worked with yourself, because it's a really important tool to carry around with you as a mentalist. And it's one of, I think, the best utility items that you can use. Okay, this is kind of a bit of a weird one now, because earlier on I mentioned the boom writer, I mentioned the thumb writer, the nail writer as something that should be on the list. I went back and forth about whether to include this or not, and then I've decided, yes, I'm going to include it. Magic Smith's Super Sharpie. Now, everybody knows Magic Smith for the double cross, right? Which is the cross jumping from one place to another. Not really a mentalism trick, per se. Super Sharpie is. What is Super Sharpie? Well, basically, Super Sharpie is the same thing as double cross, with the black putty and so on and so forth. Same thing as double cross, but what it allows you to do is steal the gimmick off during the course of the routine at any point you want to. And when you steal the gimmick off, it's basically a thumb writer. The gimmick is stuck to your thumb, and it's a thumb writer. And it's a self-inking thumb writer. So by putting the gimmick back into the pen, it resets itself and self-inks itself, ready for the next performance. But now you can do your boom writer and your thumb writer routines using a Sharpie marker, because you can have your Sharpie marker, you can write your Sharpie marker, you can write with your Sharpie marker on your business card, whatever it is that you're going to write, you can write on there, and then you can just put the pen away, and you're ready and set to do your thumb writing of any information that you want. I mean, this is a game changer. I'll tell you right now, as I said to you earlier, I do Mind Reading Goose, Steve Spill's Mind Reading Goose, which is a fantastic routine. A little while ago, I switched from doing your normal boom writer style thing with a Mind Reading Goose to actually using a Super Sharpie, because it's so much more visible on stage because you're writing in Sharpie ink, and it's so practical to get into. I mean, it's great, it really is. And the guys at Magic Smith supply it in two sizes. They supply it in a normal size pen, and they also supply it in a Sharpie Mini. Now, a Sharpie Mini will fit onto a keychain. So what in essence we have now is a pen that will fit onto a keychain that you can literally carry around with you. And anytime you want, you just grab a business card, doesn't even need to be your own, and you're into any thumb writer routine that you want to do, but using your keys, because you can just take the pen off and say, hey, I've got this little pen that I keep on my my key ring, I'm going to do something with it, and you're in, you're away, you're done. So yeah, I really like it. I really like it. I now really exclusively use a Super Sharpie. I did deliberate over whether to include it on the list or not for obvious reasons, but I think yes, definitely we're including the Super Sharpie. Okay, so in third place, we have marked ESP cards. Not just any ESP cards, but marked ESP cards. And if you're going to go with marked ESP cards, then the cards that I would recommend are the Eclipse playing cards. The Eclipse ESP cards by 1914. Available from 1914 and all good Magic dealers. So what's an ESP card? Well, an ESP card, I'm not going to go into the whole presentation about Dr. Reinhund or anything like that, but there's 5 symbols on ESP cards, and they're used by a lot of mentalists. I have them here on my arm. See, I am a mentalist. We've got as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. So you've got a circle, you have a cross, you have some wavy lines, you have a square, and you have a star. A lot of people don't realize if you don't work with the ESP symbols, they have a numerical value. The circle is 1 because it's one continuous line. The cross is 2 because there's 2 lines. The 3 wavy lines are 3, for obvious reasons. The square is 4 because there's 4 lines, and the star is 5 because it's a 5-pointed star. And using ESP symbols, you can do a whole bunch of different routines. I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of Beyond ESP by Magic Box and Michael Murray. It's literally sold 20,000 copies at this point. There are so many different routines with ESP cards. Alakazam have some nice ESP cards that are like aged and marked, and they look very nice. However, the ESP cards that I'm going to recommend if you've never used ESP cards before are the Eclipse ESP cards by the 1914 for a couple of different reasons. First of all, the project is really well put together. It's D. Christopher teaching multiple different routines, and the routines are super smart, super clever, and pack a real punch. But as well as that, the cards themselves are beautiful. They'll last a long time. Thick cardstock. You've got a little envelope to keep them in. Everything. They've thought of everything. But these ESP cards, you can literally read the markings from the other side of the room. And I know that's a big, bold claim. My eyes are terrible. And yet, even with my eyes being terrible, I can see those marks from the other side of the room very, very easily. So it opens up more aspects and more ideas and more concepts when you realize that you've got these ESP cards that you can see from a mile off. I think that anybody who's creative, that's a mentalist, that wants to create their own mentalism routines, I think you need the tools needing to do that. You know, you need tools in order to create. And one of the tools I think you need are marked ESP cards, and ones that you can read so clearly, I think is very important. So yeah, there you go. Another utility item, ESP cards, marked ESP cards, specifically Eclipse. Okay, so next up we have a Peak wallet. I think it's very, very important as a mentalist to have a Peak wallet. I think that's really important. Now, the Peak wallet that you get, the Peak wallet that you need to have, really is down to you. There's a million different ones on the market. I've met people that have had a Stealth Assassin for years and they swear by the Stealth Assassin. I've had people that say to me, hey, it's the Nexus wallet from Murph. That's the wallet that you want to go for. Other people go for the Orphic wallet. Oh, I need the Orphic wallet. I don't think anyone says that about the Peak wallet. I've seen the Shelby wallet that's coming out from Mark Mason at Blackpool, and that's a really great wallet as well. So many different great wallets, so many different great options in terms of getting the one that fits you the best. And I think you need to go for whatever wallet you think would suit you. What size would you want? What style would you want? Are there any other functionality that you want inside a Peak wallet? All of this stuff is very, very important. Now, in terms of why you need a Peak wallet and what a Peak wallet is, I'm sure that unless you've been living under a bus for 16 years now, you know that a Peak wallet is a wallet that allows you to get a peek of some information from a card that's been inserted into a wallet. So you have a business card, they write something down on it, you put it inside inside a wallet, and then you are able to read that information and regurgitate it however you see fit. And again, I'm referring to 1914 a lot in this video because they are a company that specializes in mentalism, but they've done a great project called Revelations by Louis Lavelle. And Revelations is all about, okay, you've got your peak, now what do you do with the information and how do you reveal it? So it's well worth checking out that. Now, yes, I know that there's people going to be saying, well, hang on a minute, a Peak wallet, why do you need a Peak wallet? Because if you've got some business cards, you can do center tears and so on and so forth. You don't really need a Peak wallet. And it's true, you don't really need a Peak wallet. But I think that for certain routines, it's really important to have a Peak wallet, and it really allows you to get access to that information very, very easily. Now, there's two types of Peak wallets, really. I mean, there's millions of different types, but the two that I kind of think of are ones where you put the card into the wallet, and then once it's inside the wallet, you then open up the wallet again in order to get something out, in order to, like another business card, and in that point you peek that information, a little bit like an Orphic wallet. And then you've got the sort of wallets where you put the information in and then it's available on the outside to peek. And that's hidden in a variety of different ways depending on the wallet. That would be Blinds. My Mark Bennett is a perfect example of that. The SUC peek, the Sight Unseen peek by Monk Strivings, that's another example of a peek like that will work. There's lots of different ways of getting that information, and then you have the rare wallet where they do both, like the Stealth Assassin wallet by Alakazam. It's got an SUC built into it with permission from Mark, obviously, but it's also got the main peak that you use when you open the wallet back up again. And as long as that justification is there, I think that's not a problem. Either way, I think that as a mentalist, having a peak device is very important. Okay, and the final utility device that you need as a mentalist, the final and the best, in my opinion, utility device that you need as a mentalist is a phone. If you carry a phone around with you, you are able to do absolute miracles because there is so much that you can do with the phone, depending on whether you get an Apple or an Android and depending on the apps that you put on the phone. Man, there's so much stuff that you can do. So, for example, digital force bag. You can have it. I considered putting a force bag in here, and then I thought, well, no, I'm not going to because, really, you wouldn't do that walk around or close up. It's really more of a stage performance. And then I kind of thought, I'm not going to put it in because you can do what a force bag would do very, very easily by using digital force bag. You know, I didn't want to make it all about forces. I'd already put the Sven Pad in there. So, you know, something like digital force bag, you can force an item off a list very, very easily. But on the same device, I could have, you know, Toxic Plus or Cypher or anything like that. And I have the ability to, you know, force a number in a very organic way. Then you have stuff like Maxim by Lloyd Barnes, which is going to allow you to use a memorized deck, but with no memory work at all. Cognito by Lloyd Barnes, which is going to allow people to look at various different photos, get the information. I mean, there's so many, you know, look at the Architect of Predictions. People can name anything and it's predicted in a photo that's been on your camera roll the entire time. You know, there's so many different ways that you can use a phone as a mentalist. And I think that the best way to use a phone as a mentalist is in the passive way as opposed to the aggressive way. And what I mean by that is, I think the best mentalism routines with phones are when people don't realize that the phone has really got anything to do with it. I remember in the old days, you'd have those tricks where you'd open up the phone and there'd be a picture of a deck of cards and the card would rise out of it. That's not an intelligent use of using a phone. But something like Angelo Carbone's prediction routine, where you are able to predict what somebody thinks of by having the person text you back, and you can say who's going to text you back. That's killer. You know, and it feels like it's an organic use of a phone, if that kind of makes sense. I think it's really important to have the organic use of a phone. Look at Wikitest, for example. You know, you just basically using this phone that you carry around with you, you can do the mother of all book tests on a phone. I mean, how awesome is that? There's so many different ways that you can actually perform. Look at Earworm. Earworm's another example of a trick that's great. I'm thinking of tons and tons of Inertia by okay, I'm just naming all of the Mark Kirstein apps now, but let's be honest, they're all brilliant. Inertia enables you to force anywhere on a website, any website. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And that's, for me, the passive use of a phone for magic. It's kind of, they don't even realize that the phone is integral to the effect. Locked and Loaded by Ryan Schlutz is another example. You know, the phone's just there. They name a card and it's on the lock screen. I mean, how great is that? So I would definitely say carrying a phone around with you, loaded full of mentalism applications and mentalism routines and mentalism ideas, that's a really cool thing to do. So there you go. I mean, what's your opinion? There's a lot of stuff I went back and forth on. I mean, I use in my show almost every single show. Ryland uses in his show almost every single show the master prediction system, Malloy's master prediction system. We've both got different routines for it. When you watch the Matchumentary and you see the performance that he does on stage, I've got him using a master prediction system. But I didn't want to include that in the list because it's not something that will work close up and stage. It's something that's very specific for stage, and very specific for stage when you've got somebody there with you that can help you. I was kind of saying no to a lot of things that I might have said yes to if this was a list of utility items specifically for stage, for example. As it is, it's a list of utility items that will work on stage, close up, in any environment really, for both magicians and mentalists. I want to know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you have any of the items on this list? Do you consider yourself to be a mentalist, or are you going to be, are you going to add any of these to your repertoire now I've brought them to your attention? You might not have seen them before. Again, let me know in the comments down below. Finally, you want to see more videos like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget, you can go learn a load of mentalism by going to www.thenettricks.com. That's www.thenettricks.com. You can go check it out and see what all the fuss is about. There's a ton of mentalism on there, as well as a load of other routines as well. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again soon. My name's Craig from Magic TV.